One of the steps in overcoming unavoidable challenges to living a rich and fulfilling life is taking care of our health. It's a responsibility we must nurture through positive lifestyle practices and good moral values, so let these be your priority. Hi there, this is Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Theodore Henry. Thanks for joining. On the pages today, in celebration of Blood Donor Day, we explore the science of safe blood. Then, building a safer Jamaica. A look at the government's latest initiatives on fighting crime, plus measures for mitigating disasters. For all that and more, stay with us.
Know your numbers and control the keys to a healthier heart. Know the numbers for your blood pressure, cholesterol level, blood glucose level, and your weight and body mass index. Find out the risks they represent and what you need to do to stay healthy. Talk to your doctor and start making healthy lifestyle choices to prevent a heart attack or stroke.
Today, Jamaica celebrates World Blood Donor Day, an opportunity to remind all that blood donation is safe, painless, and an opportunity to save lives. Local annual demand for blood is about 50,000 units, but the blood bank collects little more than half this required amount. You can help by donating this life-saving fluid. Watch this and rest assured that you have nothing to fear.
As long as man is around to get sick or injured, blood will remain a high-demand substance for health practitioners. But for all its wonderful properties, the life-saving bodily fluid could become a death sentence if not handled properly. For those who need their supplies boosted, health workers cannot simply hook up a needle and feed the red and white cells from another individual straight to the needy bloodstream.
It's not just a simple matter of collecting blood, finding out what the group is, and then passing it on to the recipient. There are lots of other things that go into providing safe blood.
Think of blood like a home. Certain fundamental things like walls, floors, and ceilings are common to all, but the little things you put in over the years and experiences you have within those spaces make each unique to its owner. Like your home, blood can change owners, but you have to make some adjustments to have it meet the needs of the new recipient. That is what the technicians and health workers have to do before blood that is donated can be passed on to someone in need. The first step is to screen the donor to determine their medical history and suitability to donate.
The screening is aimed at 1, protecting the donor, and 2, protecting the potential recipient.
After that, it's a matter of sterilizing the donor's arm and proceeding to draw the blood. From there, the blood is taken to the lab, where it goes through a series of tests. Technicians look for things like blood groupings such as A, B, O, and Rh types, antibodies in the red blood cells, venereal diseases such as syphilis, HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, hepatitis B and C, which affect the liver, and HTLV, human T-cell lymphotropic virus type 1 and 2, a virus that weakens the immune system. At the island's blood bank, the National Blood Transfusion Service, tests such as these are carried out daily. For each unit of blood drawn, 2 sample tubes are also collected. These are referred to as the red and purple top. For accuracy, data on the tubes must correspond with the main bag. The purple top sample is used to screen for antibodies and blood groupings. Blood grouping is just as important as the infectious screening. This ensures compatibility for the recipients, that is, people of the same blood group receiving the same blood type.
We do our ABO grouping here at the blood bank using the Diamed system. This technology is a gel system. It has microtubules, otherwise we call it as wells, and it has our anti-serum already in these wells.
A drop of the donor blood is placed into each of these wells. It is incubated and put in a machine that spins the substance at a high speed. After this process, a reading is given.
This is an example of a blood group. We can read it macroscopically. This is reading O negative based on the cells that are seen here.
In VDRL testing, which checks for syphilis, a small amount of the serum or the white part of the blood is dropped into a tube and then incubated at 56 degrees Celsius. After 30 minutes, it is taken from the incubator, placed on a slide, mixed with an antigen, and then rotated at 180 degrees for 4 minutes. The slide is then placed under a microscope for reading. A positive sample for syphilis would show signs of lumps or flocculation. Samples from the main lab are taken over here for the human immunodeficiency virus HIV screening, as well as the human T-cell lymphotropic virus HTLV and hepatitis B and C screenings. The different reagents or chemical compound for each of these viruses are added to the blood samples and placed in this machine. The reagent will cause a color change to the sample, indicating a positive reading.
Basically, it interprets this color change to a numerical value, which we can quantitate. Either if it's positive, it tells us the degree of positivity based on the numerical value, and if it's negative, we also get a numerical value, but we also have a cutoff value which can tell us whether it's negative or positive.
Whole blood is never administered as part of safety measures. The whole blood is separated into components: red blood cells or packed cells, plasma, or white cells.
If you had a patient who was anemic, who is in heart failure, and you gave whole blood, you're giving that person a lot of plasma unnecessarily. They really need the packed cells component. Not only is it unnecessary, but you put them at added risk of making the heart failure worse. So it is important to give just the component that is required.
And the safety procedure doesn't end there. A cross-matching process is also done to identify minor blood groups that might interfere with a successful transfusion process. But once all the tests are done to satisfaction and the separation process is completed, you can rest assured that the blood to be administered is safe.
Crime is one of the impediments to growth, and the government is making tools available to empower every Jamaican to take a stand and join the fight. We now share highlights of some of the latest initiatives to establish new norms for a peaceful and crime-free society.
Using the public health approach to tackle the epidemic of violence.
Just as, for example, the greatest predictor of a case of flu might be coming into contact with somebody who is already infected with flu. Similarly, the greatest predictor of a case of violence is a previous case of violence.
And so the Ministry of National Security will seek to interrupt transmission by first detecting and finding cases of violence and then encouraging citizens to change their behavior so they can understand the causes of crime and work together to find a cure. The strategy will begin by targeting the operational techniques of the security forces and the legislative framework that govern their activities. As a first step, the number of police officers in the JCF has been increased to almost 11,500 following the merger with the Island Special Constabulary Force.
Internally, we've done a lot in terms of preparing for training, additional training to close skill gap, for mentorship, for reassignment, attachment of persons to work with teams and, more experienced officers so that their skill sets can come up to the level required so that they can eventually perform on their own.
More emphasis will also be placed on proximity policing, police officers being stationed in communities to build relationships with citizens. To make that possible, more 40-foot containers will be used as mobile police posts, existing public infrastructure will be retrofitted as police stations, and developers will be further encouraged to include police posts within housing developments.
Accompanying this shift will also be a reduction in the use of the paramilitary style uniform in favor of the more civilian style red seam or khaki uniform.
A new portfolio will also be added to the JCF, the Security Services Portfolio. The unit, to be headed by a Deputy Commissioner of Police, will incorporate the Marine and Canine divisions of the JCF and will be responsible for VIP protection.
As well as securing critical facilities such as Parliament, King's House, Jamaica House, the courts, ports and airports, and other critical infrastructure, including, for example, facilities to do with the logistics hub.
The police will also boost their operations to enforce the provisions of the Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organizations Bill, popularly called the Anti-Gang Legislation, which was passed earlier this year.
Heavy penalties will be incurred by the directing minds of these organizations for offenses such as leading the criminal organization or recruiting children or adults to their gangs.
And we have actually identified cases in every division, police division, where the law can immediately be applied. And we have published internally a set of criteria that officers can look for when they make certain arrests.
Now that stakeholders have employed strategies to interrupt the spread of criminal activities, the second step involves a strong focus on social intervention programs and the operations of the Department of Correctional Services, DCS. Through the third phase of the Citizen Security and Justice Program, CSJP, which will come on stream later this year, at-risk youth in volatile communities will continue to benefit from programs that promote life skills and vocational training. Over 6,000 persons benefited from Phase 2 of the program. The CSJP will be complemented by other labor market attachment and employability programs to provide remedial education, training, and job placement. In addition, community justice services like the Restorative Justice Program will be expanded. And the Child Diversion Program will focus on community-related activities for children in conflict with the law as opposed to incarceration.
And third, the supply of legal aid, mediation, and victim support services will be increased in targeted communities.
Security officials strongly believe that the rehabilitation of inmates is important to preventing the spread of criminal activity. And so, with the help of UK prison estate consultants, a 5-year plan is being developed to transform the Department of Correctional Services. Under the program, potential sites have already been identified to build a maximum security facility which will house between 1,500 and 2,000 inmates. While those talks continue, a new behavior modification program will come on stream in June 2014 for inmates who spend a short time in prison. Facilities at the Tamarind and Richmond Farm Correctional Centers will be expanded to house medium security inmates, so that space will be available at the Tower Street and St. Catherine adult facilities for maximum security inmates. And during the first quarter of this financial year, the DCS will sensitize stakeholders about the sex offender registry, which was recently completed. Reversing the epidemic of violence in Jamaica will only be sustained if the attitude and behavior of the population change for the better. Steps must be taken to fix problems like weak family structures, a subculture of violence and lawlessness, and communities with criminal gangs. And the work must involve every sector of society: law enforcement, public and private sector interests, schools, churches, and community groups. Through the Unite for Change initiative, people all over Jamaica have been working together to make the country a safer place. This fiscal year, the campaign will be strengthened through counseling and psychosocial support for persons exposed to violence, increased volunteerism, peace marches, counseling, and parent education,
including social marketing campaigns that aim to change attitudes that either promote violence or promote retaliation against informers.
A Stay Alert app will also be launched in the first quarter of this fiscal year so that smartphone users can anonymously report crimes or send information to the police by text, voice note, photograph, or video. The government, through the Ministry of National Security, is working assiduously to cure the disease called crime, interrupting transmission and preventing it from spreading. And through the Unite for Change campaign, positive attitudes are being promoted so that all citizens can come together to create a safer Jamaica for all. That can easily change if we allow the cutting of trees, forest fires, animal grazing, crop cultivation, or improper dwellings to destroy our forest reserves. Help preserve Jamaica's flora and fauna. If you know or suspect that someone is hurting our forest reserves, call 1-888-FORESTS. Remember, protecting our forests means sustaining our lives.
The key to overcoming, or better yet avoiding, the catastrophic effects of natural disasters is to be prepared. We can achieve this by doing a few tried and proven things, like building in safe zones, constructing drains, and so much more. Next, we explore what to do when it comes to avoiding floods.
Good rainfall patterns bring joy to our farmers. Excessive downpour resulting in flooding, however, is a major disaster risk. Flat, low-lying areas are mostly affected by this hazard, where rising floodwaters threaten the survival of both crops and livestock. Work is advanced within the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to reduce the risks from such natural disasters. Tactically, floodwaters are being channeled down the drains. The creation of major drains like this one, as well as smaller feeder drains in flat and low-lying areas, forms a major part of the strategic framework for agricultural disaster risk management.
It is very important to establish drain and flatland. The drain will take away massive amount of water straight to the sea, so we will not face any flood problem. It will minimize flooding problem that we normally accustomed to.
Farmers must recognize that flood control measures are important and begin to put these in and maintain them. These artificial drains are necessary if natural drainage is inadequate. Construction should have the following basic components. A field drainage system. That's a network which gathers the excess water from the land by means of field drains, also called laterals. Main drainage system, which is a water conveyance system that collects water from the field drainage system and transports it to an outlet point. And the outlet, which is simply the terminal point of the entire drainage system, from where the drainage water is discharged into a river or sea.
What we rather normally do, when you come on to near to the rainy season, we have a structured program where we go out and encourage farmers to do drainage construction, and somewhat under the soil conservation management, we have some funds, so we assist them in the cleaning of drain with an excavator sometimes when the funds is available. So it is very important, and we endorse this activity.
When designing your drain, getting the expert advice from one of RADA's Extension Service officers will put you on the right track. Remember, by reducing vulnerability to flooding through measures like these, farmers could be avoiding enormous damage and recovery costs. And so the Ministry of Agriculture wants farmers to know what preventative measures to take. We should all remember that drainage systems must be kept clean. Shoring up the riverbanks with the use of gabion baskets and removal of excess sedimentation and other debris in waterways also plays an important role in flood prevention. Apart from putting in drains, flooding can be controlled or reduced by preserving forested areas. Forest trees and plants are responsible for holding an enormous amount of rainfall water, averting disastrous floods. Where forested areas are removed, more water runoff flows to low-lying areas and streams and contribute to flooding. Over the years, the agricultural sector has lost billions of dollars due to flood damage. These are losses that can be avoided. Let's take the necessary steps. We have to leave you for now, but remember, disasters do happen. Be prepared. Until next time, take care.
On the board this week, the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission JCDC Annual Festival of the Performing Arts National Finals continues at the Little Theatre. Come and be entertained by speech from June 17 to 19 and drama from June 24 to 25, starting time 10 a.m. each day. The Center for the Arts, University of Technology Jamaica, UTEC, presents its 2014 summer program under the theme Heritage in Young Hands. This will be held from July 7 to 31 at the UTEC's Papine campus. The summer program is open to children 7 to 12 years old who will partake in a number of activities, including learning history through drama and poetry, reviving traditional dance forms, documenting personal and community histories through basic animation and visual arts, visits to heritage sites, and more. Contact the Center for the Arts at 322-0345 or culture@utech.edu.jm for more details. The Shekinah Foundation is asking for your support for its second annual worship event on Saturday, June 28th at the Trenchtown Multipurpose Center starting at 6 p.m. Proceeds from this event will be in aid of the Shekinah, a Jamaican Worship Event Foundation. For further information, kindly contact Romario Prendergast at romarioprendergast@gmail.com or call 467-1486. Send us your events for broadcast on the JIS Community Notice Board. Call 922-868-022 or send an email to cbishop@jis.gov.jm.
The top news stories of the week are next.
Hi there, I'm Simone Wolf with your JIS News of the Week. Justice Minister Senator Mark Golding this week announced that government would be taking the landmark decision to decriminalize the use of ganja for religious and medical purposes as well as scientific research. He said Cabinet also approved making the possession of small quantities for personal use a ticketable infraction instead of a criminal offense.
I must stress that the proposed changes to the law are not intended to promote or give a stamp of approval to the use of ganja for recreational purposes. On the other hand, a criminal conviction and the attendant significant adverse long-term consequences are not justifiable for what is a relatively minor offense.
The Dangerous Drugs Act will be amended to facilitate the changes. There will be provisions for drug counseling referrals by the police and a public education campaign on the risks of using or abusing marijuana. Parliament will also be asked to pass legislation allowing persons with existing criminal records for smoking or possession of small quantities of ganja to expunge their records by applying to the Criminal Records Board. And the Justice Minister will chair an interministerial subcommittee of Cabinet responsible for developing a legal framework for medical ganja and industrial hemp industries in Jamaica.
A robust regulatory framework can provide the platform for the development of a formalized and tax-paying medical ganja and industrial hemp industry from which Jamaica stands to derive significant economic benefits.
Government sent another strong signal this week of its commitment to tackling gun violence. Cabinet made a major move by giving its approval for Jamaica to ratify the United Nations Arms Treaty.
It must be noted that ratification of the Arms Trade Treaty would assist Jamaica in addressing the challenges related to the inflow of small arms into the country. The intention of the Arms Trade Treaty is to regulate international trade in conventional weapons so as to prevent their diversion from the legal market to the illicit trade.
The relevant acts will be amended to support ratification of the treaty, and Cabinet approved new legislation to facilitate the establishment of a single designated competent national authority to monitor and keep comprehensive records for small arms in Jamaica. The Ministry of Finance has welcomed the announced upcoming visit to Jamaica of the IMF's Managing Director, Christine Lagarde. She is expected to meet with the Prime Minister and Finance Minister along with other senior government officials on June 27. Ms. Lagarde will also participate in a number of outreach activities before departing the island on Saturday, June 28. The Finance Ministry says her visit underscores the IMF's support for Jamaica's economic reform program and signals its commitment to assisting the wider Caribbean. The Ministry of Health this week assured the public that Jamaica had not run out of supplies of intravenous IV fluids, even though the country, like others, had been receiving reduced supplies over the last 3 months. Similar to the U.S. and other countries, the Health Ministry said Jamaica had been forced to utilize its emergency stock in response to a global shortage of IV fluids, but the National Health Fund was expecting a shipment by week's end from alternate sources. In other health news, $389 million is to be spent to build sewage treatment plants at 6 health facilities across the island. With financing by the National Health Fund, their wastewater systems will be improved using anaerobic digestion technology developed by the Scientific Research Council, which is responsible for designing, constructing, and commissioning the systems.
It must be seen as a practical demonstration of cost-effective application technology to add value to the lives of our people, while protecting and enriching the environment.
In a railway, we are very clear about the kind of diseases that can emerge in circumstances where sewage is not properly taken care of.
Tourism and Entertainment State Minister Damian Crawford made his sectoral presentation this week, announcing that Cabinet had approved a concept paper for a national craft policy, which is now in its 3rd draft. Local craft practitioners and other stakeholders are also to be included in a soon-to-be-established craft council.
A critical component of the development of craft sector is the establishment of an effective administrative structure, one which will facilitate inclusion and enable craft practitioners to say their own way.
He also revealed plans to protect reggae music, including a joint submission that has been made by the Ministries of Culture, Entertainment and Industry to have reggae inscribed on the UNESCO representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. There are also plans to utilize the Palisadoes area as Jamaica's first entertainment zone. And finally, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller this week honored 40 educators for their exceptional service to the sector.
As teachers, trainers, counselors, administrators, and researchers, you contribute to the building of an engaged population and an enriched knowledge society in Jamaica. And you build communities and inspire positive personal and national transformation.
Mrs. Simpson Miller was speaking Thursday night at the Prime Minister's Medal of Appreciation for Service to Education Awards held on the lawns of Jamaica House. And those were some of the stories making news this week. I'm Simone Wolf.
We are at the end of today's show, but join us again tomorrow for more. Remember, the latest on government information continues to flow on our website, jis.gov.jm, so keep the link. To tell us what you thought of today's show, send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or hit us up on Twitter @JISNews. On behalf of the team here, I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.